Welcome to Kids Doc Talk with Dr. Jennie. Dr. Jennie is a board-certified pediatrician and is the Director of Telemedicine at Pediatric Associates.
Welcome to Kids Doc Talk with Dr. Jennie. Today's guest is Dr. Ken Ginsburg discussing raising resilient teens. Dr. Ginsburg is the founder and program director of the Center for Parent and Teen Communication at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He's an adolescent medicine pediatrician and professor of pediatrics at CHOP. He works with regional and national organizations in developing programs and policies that strengthen families and see young people through a strength-based lens. He speaks to parent, professional, and youth audiences nationally and internationally, and is the author of 5 award-winning parenting books. His latest book, Congrats, You're Having a Teen, is now out from the AAP. Welcome, Dr. Ginsburg. Hi, Dr. Ginsburg. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been really wanting to talk to you for a very long time. And you're a pediatrician and you specialize in the adolescent population, which really fascinates me. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're focused on and the type of work that you do, which is resiliency in the teenage population. But first, maybe tell me a little bit about how you got into that, because that's, even for an adolescent medicine doctor, not something that's typical, right?
Right. So when I began practicing in adolescent medicine, there was a lot of discussion about telling young people what not to do, like don't do this behavior, don't do that behavior. But it didn't make a lot of sense to me because the messaging wasn't something that was particularly inspirational. And people don't respond by being told what to do. They respond by asking why they're doing things. And what you always learn is that young people who are doing the things we wish they weren't doing, they're doing it usually because they're stressed, because life is hard and they're trying to make themselves feel better. So I really went in the direction of understanding that if we could build on the strengths of young people, build on all that is good and right, help them be able to handle life's challenges. And that's what resilience is, right? But it let's be clear, I don't stop there, right, Dr. Jennie? I don't stop with resilience. The goal is thriving. The goal is to have it so that every young person is prepared to be their best and to lead us into an awesome future.
So I love that. And I think from what I hear, it's very organic for a physician who works with adolescents to want to focus on that. But I could see people saying like, okay, that's nice, but like, how does resiliency and thriving actually relate to someone's physical and mental health? Like, why should we even be talking about this?
Oh, golly. So if you're talking about physical health and mental health, the first thing you should do is not separate the two, because the human body doesn't separate the two. And we all know that as adults. Just look at your own body. Like, what is it that makes you have belly pain or headaches, or for that matter, high blood pressure or heart disease? It's so tightly tied to stress. So separating the body from the mind is not the place to start. And then if you're talking about health, what is our goal? Is our goal for young people to not have disease? No, I mean, that's a starting point. But our goal is to have them thrive, to be well, to become their best selves. And if that's our goal, then we really have to be thinking about emotional health and wellness. And if we are thinking about emotional health and wellness, it's not as simple as, wrapping kids in a downy quilt, right? You could just protect them from everything in the world, but that's not possible. And that's not truly preparing someone who's emotionally healthy. Someone who's emotionally healthy can deal with the real world and still thrive, can deal with the real world and the stresses that the real world brings you, but choose to make choices that are going to be affirming to their health and well-being instead of destructive. And all of that is critical.
So I'm thinking I'm going to put my general pediatrician hat on now, and I'm thinking like, okay, I love this. I want to be able to talk to my patients about this, but I don't know that I know where to start. Objectively, right? We screen our patients for problems with mental health, right? We screen them for anxiety and depression. I know what to ask about maybe risky behaviors that they're doing or not doing and choices that they're making or not making. But how can I objectively assess whether or not someone is resilient, whether or not they can withstand challenges?
How about you begin with asking questions about all that is good and right about them? Help the young people actually define who they are and what they're proud of, because that's your base to launch from. Any problem behavior, you should never start with, don't do this. Mm-hmm. You should start with what you see that's good and right and how what they're doing might get in the way. And the other thing that's really wonderful about this strength-based approach is that you can do this with the parents in the room. And for the parents listening, this is how you begin at home as well. You don't begin by telling young people what not to do. You are the most protective force in young lives. And your protection begins because you know who your kids really are, all that is good and right, what their strengths really are. That's where you launch from. You launch from strengths, because that is what gives you as a doctor, Jennie, that's what gives you the ability to say, this is what I see in you, but I'm worried about you because how can we make sure this doesn't get in the way? From a parent's point of view, telling young people what not to do is not the starting point. The starting point is knowing exactly who your child is, what their potential is, all that is good and right about them, and their challenges, and to let them know that you're going to stand by them through their challenges precisely because you see what's awesome about them.
I imagine that having this conversation as a parent probably works best if you have sort of laid out some of this groundwork before your child is an adolescent. Right? Because I'm a parent of younger kids, and I'm thinking when they're teenagers, if I maybe haven't done some of this work when they're younger, it's probably super challenging to start talking about their strength or things that they're good at if that's not a conversation we've had before.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So the first thing I'd like to begin with is the right time to intervene in development and the right time to parent effectively, leading with love, leading with strength, seeing all that is good and right in your child is today. It's now. And if your child is an adolescent, you can absolutely begin now, but you might have to have a preliminary conversation. But I never want anyone listening to think it's too late. But if your child is 2 years old, now's an even better time to start. Why? Because it is what you learn about your child in when you're watching them. You're really learning all of their character strengths. You know, when they're 2 or 3 years old, your kids' tremendous commitment to fairness, their integrity. So a 3-year-old doesn't speak the language of integrity, but they show it. They show compassion. They show sensitivity. They show humor. They show all of these things when they're 3. And it is your recognition of all that is good and right in your child that is going to be so helpful during adolescence, because you have to hold them to high expectations. But high expectations, if you make it about grades or trophies or scores, then you're not going to have your kid feel good about themselves. But if you make high expectations about who your child really is, then that tells that child what they can return to if they're straying, if they're not doing things well. The fact that you know who they are tells them who they can become. So let me go one step further. So suppose there's a parent of a 14-year-old who's listening right now, and they're like, gosh, I want to believe this so badly, but all that I've been doing in the last 3 years is nagging, noticing what they're doing wrong because I don't have a lot of time with my kid, so I focus on it. So I focus on the problems. So my first step is congratulations for having insight. Congratulations for recognizing that maybe this hasn't been perfect, and let your memories come back to you. I promise you that your adolescent has the same strengths that your 5-year-old and that your 7-year-old does. And I promise you that it will be deeply welcome to them when you focus on what is good and right in them. And what you might need is a conversation starter. You might need to say, Johnny, I love you so much. And what I realized in the last couple of years is mostly I'm just hounding you all the time. And I'm sorry, because that's not what I want our relationship to be. But the truth is, I just worry so much about your safety and about your success that I just keep hounding you. But I want to tell you why I worry so much and why I care so much. It's because of how much I care about you, how much I love you. I've loved you from the time you were born. This is who you are to me. Now fill in the blanks. That's a beautiful apology. It's a beautiful reset. And now move forward.
Sounds like this requires obviously a huge degree of vulnerability and almost bravery, because I could sense maybe parents having a little bit of resistance to this very positive and beautiful approach. And I feel like the resistance might come from a place of like, listen, I do only have a very limited amount of time with my kids, and they're very shut off. And teenager comes home and they go upstairs and they don't come down until dinner, if even then. And so I have this small window of time to parent. And I'm so frantic because I need them to be fill in the blank, like XYZ. I need them to be very polite and responsible. And I want to make sure that I'm raising a conscientious and responsible adult who's going to go out into the world, and be productive. And so I'm frantic. And I just need to fix all of things that I see, because if I don't, then I'm not going to produce a productive human.
So I agree with all of those goals. And now let's move forward and tell you how to meet those goals. First off, Dr. Jennie, you talked about being vulnerable. Well, you know what? You've been vulnerable from the minute your child was born. Having a child is like having your heart on the outside of your body, right? The thing you love the most, you can't protect fully, right? It is just the definition of human vulnerability is having a child. And what I'm telling you as a person, keep in mind, I'm an adolescent actor. I write about strength-based communication, but my goal is the same as yours. I want young people to be safe. I have an incredible awareness of how things can go badly. I literally take care of it for a living. I work with youth enduring homelessness as my major focus. I know how bad things can be, right? I'm not living in some la-la land, all right? What I'm telling you is that what doesn't work is telling kids what they're doing wrong, and what doesn't work is framing your relationship on what they produce. Because all that you do by framing your relationship on what they produce is create really anxious kids who feel like they can never please you, right? And as a result, it backfires. So instead, what you want is to give this kid such a deep sense of security because they know that they're deeply loved. For some people, the language of love is the easiest thing to say. I love you, I love you, I love you. For me, it comes out of my mouth easily. It doesn't for everybody. But the way you show love is by showing up, by being present, by saying how much you care about their safety, by noticing what they're doing well. And that is what love looks like. And remember this, why do we love? We love, we care, we show up so that our children know they're worthy of being loved, worthy of someone showing up, and worthy of someone caring. You do that, the other things will fall into place, right? They will fall into place because it's that sense of security that the person who knows me the best, including all the ways I'm messing up, all of my limitations, chooses to love me and to like me, right? That is so deeply protective. From there, launch into the other things, and you'll have much less anxious kids, and you'll have a much more communicative relationship, and you'll be able to influence in a much greater way than if you just try to say it all in bullet points in 3 minutes, because those messages are not heard. The child doesn't feel protected, but the child feels anxious. They hear your words, but they don't absorb them.
So I hear it, and that all makes sense to me, but I maybe want to talk like a little bit more concretely, like what are maybe some of the barriers that adolescents face, or challenges, right, that adolescents face that parents can sort of help build resilience to overcome, at least like current adolescents.
Right. So there are challenges that are coming from so many directions, right? There's academic challenges at school, there's social challenges in school and in the playground, and now on the internet, right? There's so many social challenges. At the extreme, there's bullying. But the real issue, whether it's a challenge that feels like something that you would label a problem, there's an underlying challenge, and it's the biggest challenge life offers, which is that adolescence is about trying to answer the most foundational question we are given. Who am I? That is the question of adolescence. That is challenging for every human being. It is a question larger than any other. And so what I'm going to tell you is, whether the question is who are you in terms of your identity, who are you going to be, who are you going to love, will they love you back, how are you going to contribute to the world, it's a question of many parts. And then if you laid on top of that you're not acceptable to other people, or that you might be being bullied by other people, then you understand what challenges really look like. Or if you laid on top of that you might be depressed or anxious. So the kid who has everything, that is why the home base matters so much. If the home base is secure, you don't have to solve all of your problems, your child's problems. You just have to show up and say, I know all of these things, and to me, you're acceptable just the way you are, right? And if you have trouble saying those words, then you do it literally by showing up through your presence. It is so deeply protective. And I want you to understand, I know that this might sound like poetry when like we parent with like real sentences, real prose, right? I get that. But I also want your listeners to understand how easy I'm making it for you, right? If you so as you know, I write books, and I run the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. We have these sentences that we give you that say this, say that, not dialogues. But it's so much harder to have the perfect words to say than to just show up. And what I'm telling you is that if you just show up and listen to your child and be a sounding board for your child, that is more effective than any words you're ever going to say.
I'm curious if you've seen a shift over the last, I don't know, I guess 10 to 15 years of the fundamental challenge hasn't changed, right? The fundamental question for adolescents, really anyone, like, why am I here? Who's the kind of person I'm going to become? Like, that hasn't changed. But I'm curious if you've seen a shift with an increase in the prevalence of technology and social media, and how adolescents are navigating that with keeping that question in mind, keeping that fundamental question in mind.
So it's deeply rare that someone doesn't ask me a question about social media when we're talking about adolescent stress. In fact, I don't think it's ever happened in any podcast or any parent audience, because it's that prevalent. But let me tell you that we don't yet have a complete understanding of social media's effect on young people. We don't know it. But what we do know is that things travel much faster than they used to, including your reputation and reputational changes. We do know that you can surf the internet and quickly be exposed to lies and misinformation. We do know that you can search the internet and think that everybody has a perfect life except for you. Yeah. And this can be overwhelming, right? We know that. We also know, however, that the internet can make it so no child ever feels alone again. No child ever feels isolated. That if a child is experiencing bullying in their home environment or not being accepted in their community, they can find somewhere that accepts them. So I don't want to paint the internet as altogether bad, because it's absolutely got some good, and we need to figure it out. But here is what I can tell you. I can tell you that parents are always part of the solution, and that while you don't live in your child's internet world, you can put limitations on when they're exposed to these things. For example, have your child take away your child's phone at night. If you don't, all of this stuff is happening at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, where people don't have their rational hats on, where they lose sleep, where they get into trouble and they can't function the next day. So, dock the phones in a central place, limit that internet use. And the other thing is, I'm not going to be able to directly quote this study, but a study actually showed that one of the most important variables with social media use, meaning one of the things that mattered the most, was not what the young people were doing, it's what their parents were doing. That the young people who were suffering were actually because their parents were so on the internet, and that might be circling back to what we talked about, that they're having less connection directly with their parents. Like, human connection matters.
So interesting. So I think that sort of reinforces your whole point of, like, you just got to show up, even if you don't have the right words, and even if you're trying to undo maybe some negative talk that has already seeped in. One of the key things you can keep doing is showing up. And I'm thinking, like, kind of the typical teenager that I see, and overwhelmingly they're wonderful, and I really love taking care of this population, but sometimes they kind of like live in their own world, and the environment at home is, parents are very careful because they don't want to have a negative relationship with the teen. And so it's kind of a little bit permissive. So the teen, classic teen, as they come home, they go upstairs, doors closed, whatever, music on their phone with their friend, video game, etc. Maybe they come down for dinner, maybe don't, or maybe they have after school sports. And so we don't see them in the evening. Then they come home, go to bed, and that kind of like repeats. So what does showing up practically look like for a parent of teens like that?
Showing up involves some time, but it involves a balance. So sometimes it means literally just showing up and spending time and being there when your child is upset and checking in and say, how was your day? You look troubled today. I can look at your eyes and I can tell something's on your mind. You want to talk now or later? Like, that's what showing up can be. But I also want to make two really key points. The first is that good parents do not produce young people without problems, right? Good parents are the ones who show up when their kids do have problems and who stand by their teens. In fact, we at the Center for Parent and Teen Communication are launching a social media campaign called #StandByTeens, right? It is about standing with them. But let me, you talked about something else. You brought up permissive parenting. So now let's talk about what good and effective parenting looks like. Because Dr. Jennie, 60 years of research tells us that good parenting involves two forces. On the one hand, love and warmth, just caring about your kid. And the difference between love and warmth is that love is what I feel, and I may or may not be able to use those words, but warmth is that my kid knows I feel it. So on the one hand, and then the other hand, has to be rules and boundaries and monitoring. Showing up has to include that, right? So permissive parenting doesn't work, right? If permissive parenting is just, I love you so much, call me Ken, I trust you, then young people get really anxious because they always worry that their parents feel like friends and they don't want to lose their friends, right? Friends can be fleeting. Parents shouldn't be fleeting. Parents have to show up no matter what. So permissive parenting feels nice in the moment, but it feels too much like friendship and kids don't feel secure. We know this. The other kind of parenting, which is just all about rules. You'll do what I say. Why? Because you're in my house, right? Which letter in the word no can you not spell, young man? This kind of what's called authoritarian parenting also pushes kids away. And they end up engaging, they're perfect angels until about mid-adolescence, and then they engage in all sorts of risk behaviors, but they never tell their parents. We know that it's the balancing act that works. We know that. It basically says, darling, I love you so much, but I'm not your friend, I'm your dad, and that's better for you because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to let you make mistakes because that's how you grow. I'm going to stand there when you get back up. But for things that really matter, and those are the things that might compromise your safety, you're going to do what I say because it's my job to protect you, and I love you too much to let you be hurt, right? That is called balanced parenting. As you know, I call it lighthouse parenting, right? And there is a ton of research that shows that it is that balancing act that produces the best academic outcomes in school, the best emotional outcomes, meaning they're less sad, less depressed, less anxious, the best behavioral outcomes, meaning less likely to do drugs. Dr. Jennie, my own research shows you're half as likely to be in a car crash if you do this kind of parenting. And you know what's super ridiculously cool is that the best relationships in homes are parents that do both loving and boundaries, right? So just being loving and warm and permissive, those are not the best relationships. The best relationships are when your kid relies on you for the advice about keeping safe and staying safe. And don't worry that setting boundaries is going to make your kid hate you or restrict your kid. But in fact, when they have boundaries that an adult has said, this is how I define safety, then they're able to fall down in the middle of those boundaries. They're able to make mistakes and experiment just like they're supposed to. Then they feel safer doing it because someone says, within this territory, you can mess up. Outside of this box, no.
I think that is, I love that being the goal. I love that being the goal of a parenting method. I find that it is probably a lifetime of work, right? Your whole like kind of parenting life cycle of work of trying to balance the two. I think the other extremes are probably much easier, right? Because now you have to figure out, is every scenario, is this something that is a safety concern? Is this an opportunity for sort of a loving boundary? Is this a lighthouse moment, right? Or is this something that can fall into one of the other two categories? So I think it's very hard.
What I'm loving, Jennie, is the way in which you're wrestling with me. I'm really appreciating it. And the reason I'm appreciating it is that you're asking the hard questions that your audience will be asking. And therefore giving me the opportunities to respond. So I'm loving this conversation. So yes, you are right that at any given moment, it's easier to say yes, which is what a permissive parent is, or to say no, which is what an authoritarian parent does. Another thing that's very easy to do is say, I don't care, which is what a disengaged parent says. But those kids end up the very worst of everyone. So on any given moment, if you want to choose easiness, choose yes, no, or I don't care. But how about we don't think about the moment and we think about what's really easy? Yeah. What's really easy is having kids who communicate with you, kids who rely on you, kids who you know what's going on in their lives. Because if you know what's going on in their lives, you can parent best. I can tell you without question, as an absolute fact, based on decades of research, that the parents who know what's going on in their kids' lives is the parents who choose the balancing act. They are warm and love their kids, but they're not their friends. They are people who are a steady presence and guarantee their presence. They're people who give clear boundaries and let their kids know you can rely on me for the tougher questions in life. So in the moment, it's easier to say no. But what about in a year from now? If you want your kid to succeed academically, if you want your kid not to do drugs, we know, I don't give you any guarantees in life, but we do know what is going to make it much less likely. And that's the balancing act. Can I dive in a teeny bit deeper to help your audience understand
Absolutely.
why?
Absolutely. I brought up the fact that this sounds very challenging because thinking as a parent, I don't want anyone listening to be like, this sounds hard. Well, it is, right? I just want to validate that it is hard, right? If you find this to be challenging, nothing has gone wrong. I like saying that to parents, like, oh, this is hard. Are you sure? Yes, it's not supposed to. If you're doing it right, if it's easy, I think you're probably doing it wrong.
Amen. Amen. Like if all I had to do was say, love your kids and achieve balance between protecting them and loving them, then I would put it on a postcard and mail it to every parent. I wouldn't run the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. I wouldn't write books that tell you how to do this stuff. It's acknowledging that it's hard, but what is hard, the fact that something's hard doesn't make it unimportant. It is worth your investment. That's the point. So let me go a deeper dive to just tell you kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, the science behind why this matters so much. Monitoring your kid for safety, we've always known matters. And what we did is, like, if you go back like 15 years, the messaging was very clear. Parents, you're the anti-drug. Ask your kid where they're going, who they're going to be with, what they're going to do. Is there an adult? All the questions. Who, what, when, where, why. You actually don't see this messaging anymore. And the reason is it doesn't work. Peppering your kid with questions when they're running out the door just makes them lie to you. So if you really want to monitor your kid, it's not what you ask, it's what you know. And we are extremely clear, based on both common sense and research, that the parents who know what's going on, it's about what the kids choose to tell the parents, right? And what I will tell you is that if you are permissive and say yes about everything in any given minute, it's easier, but you won't know what's going on in your kid's life because they don't choose to come and ask you questions because they already know the answer. It's yes. And if you at any minute choose the answer no as your easy answer, it's easier in the second, but your kids won't come to you when they really need advice and they really need your guidance because they already know the answer. It's no. The kids who go to their parents and tell them what's going on in their lives are the kids who know their parents think, that they're thoughtful, that they weigh consequences, that they want them to grow, allow them to make mistakes. They don't hover, but dang, they protect, right? Those are the parents who know the most, who have the best relationships. And let me say something else to the parents out there. You are not just parenting for the first 18 years of your child's life. You are deciding what your relationship is going to be like for the next 60 years. When you are 90 and they are 60 or 70, you're deciding now. If you are the kind of parent who's super controlling, no, then you're not going to see them very much except for on holidays. If you're the kind of parenting that's yes to everything, they're going to enjoy being with you, but they're not going to engage you in the details of their lives. If you parent as a lighthouse parent, as a balanced parent now, then you're setting up the kind of relationship that's going to have interdependence for decades to come. Hey, this person who raised me, they didn't try to control me, they just tried to guide me. Well, I'm 61 and I still need guidance, right? But I don't want to be told what to do.
I hear that. I like the idea of parenting with the end goal sort of in mind, right? That I'm not parenting in the moment. The choices I'm making now as a parent are going to impact the relationship I have with an adult child.
Absolutely.
And that is so impactful, so powerful to think about when we're making these like daily minute by minute choices and having these interactions with our kids.
Amen. And the other thing to do is look at your child. Don't look at the child who's sitting in front of you. Think about the 35-year-old you're raising. It makes it so much easier, right? Well, actually, I don't know that it makes it easier in the moment, but you stop.
I think it gives perspective. It gives perspective, right? And so maybe the decision of what to do in that moment just comes a little bit easier.
And the things you care about shift. So for example, if you're thinking about the 4-year-old, you just want to make them happy, and then you give them a cookie, and they're going to smile for 2 minutes. But when you look at the 4-year-old and you understand the adult you're trying to raise, you understand that happiness is more rooted in whether they have human relationships, whether they understand why they matter to other people. And those are things you can begin working on in the earliest moments.
I agree. And I love that. We covered a tremendous amount of ground. This was amazing. I learned so much. What a great episode. I want to thank you so much for coming on and discussing this critical topic with me.
Absolutely a privilege and an honor, Dr. Jennie. Thank you.
Make sure you like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for joining us on Kids Doc Talk.